It's an all new marketing thought leader to drop some knowledge bombs on us today. Another friend, another meetup here, folks. We are just getting started, Jennifer.
Nice moves. Nice moves.
I'm going to eventually install a foot cam so you can see the footwork that goes on too. That's all around there when we really get revved up and going.
All right.
But Jennifer's you're a fellow music lover like myself. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and through our collaborations together, we've gone out and been at different events and things like that 2X is sponsored. We worked together there, and there's been some dance parties involved there, Jennifer, right?
Yes, absolutely. Some of the best dance parties. One of the best things about the work here, actually, are the opportunities for dance parties.
I agree. It's actually a great perk that 2X and also the greater B2B marketing world has to offer us if we choose to accept it. And I've got some questions on that front later, Jennifer, about your experience getting into events and what's that been like and the pros and the cons and the highs and the lows. The headline I had for our discussion was why content works, what you believe in around content, particularly in a marketing and perhaps even a B2B marketing, and then a discussion between us on like what we see working in content and what we think the future of content and creating better experiences and journeys for our audiences that we target. But, you're a VP of marketing now over at 2X. You've got a team of marketers you've built. We worked together through your time and your tenure doing that. That's how I actually first came to know you. Is when I joined 2X and Dominic Colsante, the CEO, said, we're standing up our own marketing department at long last instead of like borrowing and stealing from our staff members to do, random moments of marketing as many hyper-growth businesses start out doing. He wanted to stand up that formal marketing function. He said, we've got this lady, Jennifer Wang, who's coming over from our Kuala Lumpur operations. She's very good. She built a team of, I don't know what it was at the time, Jen, right? Like 80 or 90 content marketers.
I think they're higher than that, but yes, I left. They're around 60.
Sure as heck are. That thing going strong. So she came on over to the North America side, and that's when you and I started working together in my role as head of partnerships over there. We had a great collaboration. So what I wanted people to hear from you is you are a creator, you are a writer, you enjoy art and the creative arts and so on, but you also have mastered aspects of business. You've built teams. You've built layers of leadership. I just described you stood up an entire department practically from scratch. But it started with writing and the written word. And I'm always really impressed with some of the business leaders and marketing leaders I've seen that have that kernel of writing. And I just wanted to ask you to start with, you could have done a lot of things in your life. Why did you choose to focus on writing?
Well, I would say it sort of finds your career in writing. You can't help but communicate that way. You find that that's the best way that you consume messages, is the best way that you feel you can express yourself. And prior to becoming a marketer, I was actually in journalism.
Right.
And so journalism was where I also got a taste of what business was, the creativity behind the business, because I was covering entrepreneurship. And I had the opportunity to meet so many great CEOs and founders from all industries. And what I found was this combination of passion for the ability to create something from nothing, but also a very practical view of how you needed to create revenue or to come up with plans that would appeal to a market. And so I was busy telling those stories and didn't really think about being part of the startups themselves until I left and found my way eventually to 2X in Southeast Asia.
Awesome. And that publication you're describing that gave you that opportunity to interview those CEOs about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. Would that be a publication people might recognize here?
It's been a while, but I believe it should be still out strong. Entrepreneur Magazine was the place I got to meet all those amazing entrepreneurs.
Name drop a little bit. People know entrepreneur. Come on now. So again, writing was something you sort of kind of fell into, and then also, and then as you're doing it well as a journalist, you suddenly kind of like catch this little bit of bug and exposure to entrepreneurship just by the extension.
You have to drink.
Journalism.
I wouldn't say it was the Kool-Aid, but it was sort of like it didn't seem logical not to try to start your own thing or be part of someone's vision to start their own thing.
Well, why'd you go out to Southeast Asia? Because you were born and raised in the United States like I was. Like, what made you go, you know what? As I go out, I've got the world in front of me for career choices. I've got the world in front of me for where I may want to go travel and pursue that career. What drew you to Southeast Asia? I just think that's a cool angle on your life, that chapter of your career.
I mean, I don't know how much people believe in manifesting, but I literally
You can talk about manifesting on this. Then you know you're with Nick Sal now. Come on now.
I went away from journalism because I wanted to actually be part of a startup. So I bounced from different startups in media to try to look for something that was going to grow. And I couldn't. To be honest, the one thing about working for a magazine like Entrepreneur is that you get the 0.5% of people who actually succeed. So I learned a lot about things that don't work while I was out there. So enough of those opportunities came and went. And then I decided that maybe I wanted to quit and be a freelancer, much like yourself, because I felt like I wanted to start writing those stories with even a more emotional and personal angle and really get into like the greatest conversations I ever had with entrepreneurs. Like they say things like, oh, it's you have to split business life and personal life. It's not business. It's not personal. It's business. But actually, the most amazing entrepreneurs I ever met were the ones who didn't believe in that. They were an integrated human being who had this vision, and the business was just something they also did. And so I wanted to be that, and I wanted to write about those things. That I wanted to go to Asia to look for these really amazing entrepreneurs that I knew existed. The market there was really booming, and so I left just to check it out. And I was saying that, I declared that, but then I received this LinkedIn message in my inbox, and it said something like, "Would you like to be a content strategist at the startup that was starting up in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia?" So this wasn't 2X, just spoiler. It was 2X, but it brought me there. And then while I was there, I decided to stay. But then just to explore. And it was an amazing year. And then I was, I believe, in Bali at the time on like a yoga thing, which I do. And then I received another LinkedIn message from the managing director of what was 2X, or also it was a different name back then. But she offered a position. She was looking for a writer. And I thought, I love this region so much. I love startups still. And so maybe this one, the one that I had come to Malaysia for, it didn't feel like the right place for me. But this one, I was like, this could be cool. And so that's when I first met Dom. He interviewed me. I think I was back in Malaysia. It was just a phone call. And then he asked me if I would at least promise to stay 1 year. And 1 year is now, I don't know, is it going on 7? Probably. It's been a while.
Into the whirlwind of hypergrowth. So, I mean, what needed to change mentally when you stepped out from like, okay, I'm a writer, I'm a journalist, I know what the skills of the trade of that is. Now I need to actually run a business division. I'm going to be a writer, but now as we all know, you quickly were identified as a potential leader of writers. What had to change? What did you have to either put to bed or try to develop more of as you went through that transition?
Well, to be honest, a lot of the reason why I felt successful is because I didn't forget what the work actually was on the ground level. I think knowing the craft and knowing how writers think helps you develop things that will protect what's valuable about the way that they do good work. The important thing is just another aspect of storytelling, which is translation. So I felt that when you receive a business goal, that you didn't immediately just say, this is what we're doing, but you actually had to think about how that would actually play out. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of some good examples because it has been a while since, for example, I remember one of the biggest things that I did at the beginning was we had to scale a way to do content strategy for new clients. And so at the time it was not structured. It was very much like we needed to run campaigns. So we would run emails. If the client said we needed emails, we would write a bunch of emails and we would A/B test. I remember thinking there needs to be some structure because writers work really well when they have focused works.
Let's be active. What's coming?
We need a white paper. Exactly. White paper, emails, whatever. And honestly, it was sort of like throwing darts numbers out there. I was like, well, let's just do three white papers, one a month, because I know that you can write a white paper in a month. At the time, now you can write it much faster with AI. But at the time, it was like what we were working with was, okay, so what is something we can create boundaries around? So
Right.
three
You're
things.
talking about when you're building this team of writers to meet a capacity of demand from a variety of clients,
Exactly.
and you've got white papers coming, you're thinking, how can I line up my team to be able to effectively and realistically produce these things?
Because as we were adding on more and more clients, it was really imperative that we made it immediate impact. I think the fact is like, how do you prove that you understand what the client does? And how do you ensure that the first campaign you send out is going to get engagement enough that the client thinks, oh, these people know what they're doing. And so it really was like, there was a training that could be built from that. There was an output, a deliverable that could be produced, but you just needed to like say it. You needed to say, the first 90 days, you write these 3 white papers. This is how you write the white paper. And each of these is like, this is the pain point based messaging for this one. And then you would start to just call in different frameworks for it. But you didn't just say, oh, write the white paper, because the thing about it is like a writer will go into flourishes. Their sentences will be wonderful, but they'll forget like who the audience is. So you kind of had to like flesh that out, like just seeing how people were. And in the beginning, in the market, there weren't a lot of B2B trained writers in Malaysia. So I was also hiring business journalists who were also learning how to make the transition. And
I ask you to drill in here, like, so how's she writing, the business of writing that you're talking about? Like when you think about people putting fingers to keyboards to write words, text, should that be, and why should that be a distinctive storytelling guild and skill set versus the other storytellers in B2B and content, such as the video folks or the design folks or the people who are involved in sometimes branding or messaging?
I mean, it could be just because that was how I was thinking, but our writers really served as strategists for all creative and content. Because honestly, you can provide a design and ask for beautification, but in order to write something really compelling, you have to truly understand the product, the market. You have to do a lot of thinking work. So in situations where we may not have had like the strongest marketing manager, the content strategist would then serve as the lead to like really put on their marketing hat and like really drive that work. And
That
so
makes sense to me.
I think,
Because I had teams, sorry to jump in, but I think those other teams would defer to that. They'd say, well, yes, if somebody is going to do that hard thinking work and determine the message, which has to be transported to us in some form of text, we're going to let them go first. We're going to let them lead because they're going to be able to articulate and they have the discipline of thinking about that. And then the video person, the design person, the events person wants to pick up those words, pick up that DNA and translate it in their medium, right?
yes. Although I will say that as we mature as a company and as we mature as marketers, you do have more and more collaboration. Like it is the more skilled everyone is, the better the product is, of course. But it was
What does that
Yeah.
look like?
I think it's that it takes a while for people to really, for example, in the beginning, we were like, oh, a writer can learn all the messaging from reading the text, from doing a content audit. But then honestly, the maturity required eventually for them to understand data. At first, I was always like, content first. But actually, it's content and data at the same time, talking all the time. Like you can't know everything just off words. Like you have to have the input from everything else. So,
And that's something you've learned since then. That's something a little bit.
yeah. So the truth is, you can't build something that's so complex. It goes from basic to complex. So when you're asking like the journey, honestly, it's just one foot in front of the other for a very long time. And then you turn around and you're like, I walked a mile.
Yeah.
It really,
It's ironic you said that. I literally wanted to ask you, I have it written here. Have you ever been in such a blur? You feel like you're always on the way to getting something done, but you don't actually feel like anything's getting done until that moment you get to breathe and look back. You're actually kind of stunned at how much you got done in hindsight. Like, can you tell us about, because I know you've had a few of those. I've been to those. Like, have you been in that kind?
always. Being in a hypergrowth company, it really does. We like to say that every 6 months feels like you're in a new job.
Yes.
And somehow it doesn't really get easier, but you sort of trust because it's happened before, that in 6 months to a year, you will look back at all the problems that you thought were tremendous problems and think, oh, how simple.
Right.
And then there's a degree of satisfaction that comes with that, because sometimes you're presented with this monumental thing. Like if someone said, you have to figure out how to assign 30 different writers to different accounts with different skill sets, with different requirements. And you started and you thought I was just a writer, like you would just go crazy. But actually it's like you get to hire the people, you know, the people, you talk to the people every day. And then those things that you do every day, suddenly someone asks you a question and you have internalized what is needed, and you kind of fit the puzzle pieces together. Now, of course, documents help. And once you scale past a certain point, it can't just live in your head. But definitely, there's this sense of like looking back every year. I like to tell the team, actually, as often as possible, to think about at the end of every big thing that we push through, that it's amazing what they've done, because it didn't exist. And yeah, the more that we do mature, exactly. And then also the tasks that we are asked to do are so much more difficult to achieve. Like a single writer is no longer possible to like move the needle. It has to be a full team of like 8 or 9 functions working together in order to produce the type of engagement or quality that our clients demand.
And you've organized some rituals to drive that home and reinforce that with the growing team over the years. I know, like through science fairs or whatever, where your team would kind of like gather as a guild, all those writers you were recruiting and training up.
Yeah. So there was a point, like I could probably go through my notes better and then think through what happens when the team gets to like 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, 50. But there was this point where we had enough people that we needed to get everyone together, because you couldn't fit them all at a dinner table in a room. And we organized, one of the writers actually came up with this great idea to do like a town hall. So the writing function was the first in our company to do like a function-wide town hall, which is now replicated everywhere. Of course you do. You would have emceed all. And then it was like a very much, let's pick the people who should speak, and important topics that they were saying over and over and over again that everyone should just know. And then we also made our own logo. Like we had another writer create some logo options. I know it was nice. And then we used those opportunities that we met once a month to do presentations to also introduce things like appreciation awards, like moments where you could tell people who mentored you how much they helped, or you would be able to like create a sense of bond between people who shared the same experiences in craft. And those were the rituals, I think, that really created a core that people, like I'm still very, very good friends with the managers that I left 2 years ago. Honestly, if you're really trying to create processes for a large number of people, I think it really, to me, it was never really hard. I never had to think and say, oh my gosh, like, what's the right thing, the right next move to make? It was honestly like, you just want to share something that you learned the hard way, so that the people behind you don't mess up the same way and take more time. So all it is like making sure you have those channels. The same way that you have different channels to reach your customers, you have to produce channels for your team to get the right information that they need to perform the very best that they can and feel proud about what they do.
Well, this is why I didn't know what you were going to say, but this is why I wanted people to hear from you, because many of us are armies of one, whether we're solopreneurs or we're a single content or creator type person inside an organization. And you're probably wondering, if that's the case, how do you go from 1 to 2? How do you go from 1 to 3? How do you go from 1 to 60 like Jen has? And that's what you're talking about here. So I hope folks are taking notes. But Jen, this is so money. And I love also that you bring in the people aspect. And I always feel like that's something that gets short shrift. And it's sort of like, what does that have to do with content production? Well, those people are not going to work as hard. They're not going to be as passionate or dedicated. They're not going to learn as fast. They're not going to pull for each other without building that community around the practitioner. So that's super cool. And wanted to just underscore that. So Jen, I want to give you a role. First of all, after that little story, that earned the shot of the podcast. I had a shot in here of whiskey. I went unlocked it. I was waiting for some real good nuggets. So you get that. We're gonna go ahead and tip this back for you. Oh,
What is the shot
it
of?
was Jack Daniels.
Okay.
But it occurred to me, I'm like, I can do that. Maybe I should ask my boss, Nick, can we take a shot on the podcast? Yeah, it got approved, Jen. I can't believe it. But I got the notice here. They were okay with me doing that. Role play, Jen. Okay. I'm just throwing this at you curveball style. I'm saying you're like this, the head of, marketing. It's like what you do now. Let's do something crazy, Jen. Let's imagine you're like, I don't know, the head of marketing or something like that, like a VP of marketing. Ever heard of that? Well, you're at a new company. I'm just trying to get to see what you would do if someone was in your shoes coming into an organization, got a bit of a content background, but now's your first chance to be like a marketing leader, and your CEO or your exec, your CMO who hired you comes in and goes, great. Well, look, I want to set up a content team at my company, Jen. I hear you know a lot about that. Really want to ramp up my content production, turn into a growth engine for our company. I hear like inbound content, creating a lot of content. I don't know why I'm like this like sleazy sounding CEO. I'm just very blasé about the whole thing. But I hear growth engine's pretty good. I want to become a media company as well as a manufacturing firm, whatever we do for real, right? So when I come into like that and come with that claim, I want to set up a content team. I want to be a media company. I want to spit out like a one white paper a month. What do you need for that, Jen? Like, can that happen? How soon can we get started? What are some of like the first questions you would ask to size up how big of a shit show you have in front of you?
First thing you would need to share is the content that you have that you really like.
Oh.
So
you're like, what type of content engine? What do you call like that?
What exactly is, in your opinion, a great example of content? Who's doing it? And who is it? The competitors that you like? Is it just some other brand that you really enjoy reading? Because it's important, because that's you want to, if you want to produce great content, you have to know what great looks like. The audience who's judging what it is.
Okay, so I name a couple of what you would consider reasonable competitors. All right, they're way ahead. They have a team of probably 5 or 6 people doing their content, you realize, and stuff like that. But at least I'm in the right ballpark for who would be good to look at in our industry.
Sure. Then it would absolutely be what is the resourcing look like? So the people, because having hired or looked at CVs of thousands of writers over the years, it's really obvious that when someone knows how to write, they can write anything. And so if you, it's easier with training, but if you're like a one person or you're starting from scratch, that first hire is incredibly important. And so that's
what if I'm like, whoa, I guess you could have a couple of freelancers, Jen, but I was hoping sort of like you do most of the writing, but then you'd also help like build the team. I heard you build the team before and you were a writer before. Maybe we can just start with some freelancers, keep the overhead kind of low and under control, and then kind of prove it out from there. Would that be a problem if I gave an answer like that? Because I feel like in so many words, people often get an answer like that. A very conservative, a very sort of like, let's do minimal investment, prove it out, and then see, and then a little bit more investment.
Honestly, they're probably going to say something about AI and like what you can do with AI.
And besides with AI, this is pretty much going to write itself, right, Jen? So, I just need you to prompt engineer for me, right?
Well, the truth is you can do way more. And I'm a convert. I actually love it so much. It doesn't mean that it doesn't change the fact that you need an amazing person, an amazing writer, and a content person who understands content. But actually, you can produce a lot of great work with fewer people. And so I would say, sure, what is your expectation? I think it's all about making sure you have the expectations correct. Yeah. I think what it is like, I never really say no until I understand the full scope of it. Like, I actually feel that being in the position that I have been, where everything has sounded impossible, and then you just make it happen. I'm like, if someone comes to me and says, we need to become like this competitor, I first have to get what I know to be the pieces. And then if I can get those pieces, then I can say, all right, this is how long it's going to take, because I have actually done it before. But I would worry if the person who's judging what good or great is not aligned with what you think is good or great, because there's an aspect there of like, If the CEO is the person who decides what's great, but you know that it is not great and it won't get you those results, then that's when you have to be comfortable pushing back, because if you don't, it'll end up biting you in the ass.
Oh,
Like-
I want to underscore that. Is there anything else you would offer? So I get it. You're going to push, and I would probably think maybe we're on track to maybe some sort of a content advisory board, formally or informal. Like, who are some people other than this CEO's opinion, which is obviously not the target audience. We're not trying to target our CEO's ego. We're trying to target the market and appeal to them. What might be one more question, challenge or something like that, based on everything you've learned from being the writer, building the team, transitioning that over to being a VP of marketing and put on events, like, you're like, this is a gotcha question. I wasn't either brave enough or even knowledgeable enough to ask this before, but I would certainly want to be sure I brought this up nowadays, knowing what I know now. Is there anything else in addition to what you just said you might push others to ask in these types of scenarios?
Probably how quickly they would expect results. If you want to produce a white paper to reach a certain number of people, there are certain tactics that you can do to try to make that land. But if you're trying to create marketing impact on a grander level, the kind that this imaginary CEO is saying,
Yes.
it actually does mean you have to be findable. I mean, I have a friend who wrote on Twitter multiple times a day for like a decade before he got found. So it's a little bit like that. It's like, and how fast you produce that content and however many channels that you're on, that means that when people hear about you, they look up and then they can't get away from you. So it's just going to take a lot more time, and it would take a couple quarters of like a full-on team with this flywheel of content that is being produced on a weekly basis, is being generated. So think about the quantity, the sheer mass of that.
And if she says it's a couple of quarters, it's not because she's trying to sandbag it. She's the one who's been, from my experience, like the big advocate of wherever savings can be made, wherever efficiencies can be gained. And she's saying, turning all the knobs that we know that are available to us in the marketing operations today. I'm still looking at a couple quarters until we've got this critical mass of presence in the market, of thought leadership in the market, right?
So, and it is really important to know that like you can do a lot with AI, but you have to truly invest in what you believe in. So if you believe that content is important and that you like it to the CEO, it's like, if you believe that it's important and it's going to make a big difference, then you should do it the right way. And so, yes, you can still save costs from what it used to cost, but you have to be like, when can you shortcut anything, really? Like, would you shortcut any other part of your business? Why would you do that for your creative?
That was actually the drinkable moment. That should have been the shot right there. But still, very good knowledge bombs being dropped here. Jen, as we ride out and look out towards the sunset here, the horizon, what are you working on and or prioritizing now or next? And that is open. Do not feel constrained to your current roles. I'm just wondering what's cooking.
So work-wise, I'm really excited. We're going to put out a new website soon. It's like one of those projects that has been brewing, and I'm going to be excited to see it finish. It's just down to the project management now, where images are being changed over and like we're finalizing a copy. So that's coming. On a more personal level, I am working on finishing an actual book about travel that I have done throughout the last 8 years. And it is pretty close to being a complete manuscript, as in I'm doing the final edits and looking for a cover designer. So it's nice to have that.
As a fellow travel buff, and you know that, I cannot wait to read it. Please let me know how we get on the pre-sale list.
I will do that.
And what do you need help, ideas, or connections with? If I could summon the full might of my burgeoning community behind you here, if you've provided any value to them, what could they help you with in return? What are you looking for more ideas on? How can we sort of invert this podcast your way?
I guess, well, having just moved back to the US from being away, and
Been out there a long time.
yeah, I mean, I just want to say hello to people.
On that note, if somebody's like, I'm going to Philly, or I'm into content too, or I'm turning from a content leader to a marketing leader, I'm trying to spin up events, my boss just came to me with something eerily similar to that crazy scenario that Nick just role played with you. Like, how can they get in touch with you for for that type of stuff. Do you prefer to use LinkedIn messaging? What's the best way to get in touch with you to network?
I think LinkedIn is a great place.
You're vigilant.
I'm vigilant, although there are a lot of unaccepted invites because they don't know where people come from. So just say that you came from the podcast, of course.
And on that note, let's end with Jennifer Wang's favorite or just most recent top of mind Nick Sal just experience, I think everyone's dying to know, and I'm sure you're just like holding back, and that's what this hat is alluding to. Like Jennifer and I helped do Breakthrough 2023 at 6 Cents when I was in Austin, this old cowboy sort of Western reference. We've done multiple webinars, events and stuff. Anything that stood out to you as just a fond memory in the trenches, trying to just get the word out about the cause of the brands that we've represented. Anything you want to throw out there? Fond memories.
Well, while we were on the subject of people, I really did appreciate our one-on-ones. They were one of those more small things that are overlooked in terms of connecting.
Because we were two armies of one, trying to figure out how to build programs, like real programs, and how to align our leadership and be taken more and more seriously and that type of thing. Hats off to you for what you built. And it was just, it was great to be able to support each other towards the mutual goals. What were the company's goals? Everybody wins, guys. Everybody wins. You got to meet with your fellow leaders. Who's a peer to you across from different departments, and join arms with those people and team up. And I'll just say for my part, since you brought it up, partnerships, you cannot succeed without marketing. And anybody who's trying to tell you need to be in partnerships and you're going to handle the marketing aspect of that, I'd say you are not giving proper respect to what's involved around content and marketing. That is a serious deal. And I will help bring partnerships into that creation process. But listen to what Jennifer Wang just spent a half an hour describing. That's not something you just tuck in to something else, gang. All right. I want to tuck in partnerships into that massive machine that Jennifer just described and has built before and is continuing to build at 2X. So if you're not one-on-oneing, if you're in my role, if you're in anything but content and creative listening to this podcast, join arms with those who do know how to create, who do have the influence and the connections to create, because you will not be able to speak without them, at least not at scale. So that's certainly why I appreciate working with you, Jen. And I hope folks get inspired by your story here. And I'm looking forward to seeing you around the 6 Cents ecosystem, around the 2X ecosystem, and maybe on future content productions here in the future.
Same.
I'll have you on for your book promo, right? You'll do your book tour and you'll have a bunch more podcasts to go on. You'll tell us about it. All right.
Looking forward to it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
So am I. Thanks.